Welcome back to Grim Advice with Gretta Myers. You've entered the Grimoire. Let's turn a page together, and I checked. We will be turning pages. Alright. Yes, this is as good as the shot's gonna get, because my camera woman disappeared somewhere. And I would be filming where I normally film, however, we had lighting issues today, so this is what we're doing. It's gonna be fun. Without further jibber-jabbering, the singing, springing lark. There was once a man who was about to set out on a long journey, and on parting he asked his 3 daughters what he should bring back with him for them. The eldest wished for pearls, the second wished for diamonds, but the third said, "Dear father, I should like a singing, soaring lark." The father said, "Yes, if I can get it, you shall have it," kissed all 3, and set out. Now when the time had come for him to be on his way home again, he had brought pearls and diamonds for the 2 eldest, but he had sought everywhere in vain for a singing, soaring lark for the youngest, and he was very unhappy about it, for she was his favorite child. Then his road lay through a forest, and in the middle of it was a splendid castle, and near the castle stood a tree, but quite on top of the tree he saw a singing, soaring lark. "Aha! You come just right at the right moment," he said, quite delighted, and called to his servant to climb up and catch the little creature. But as he approached the tree, a lion leapt from beneath it, shook himself, and roared till the leaves on the tree trembled. "He who tries to steal my singing, soaring lark," he cried, "I will devour." Then the man said, "I did not know that the bird belonged to you. I will make amends for the wrong I have done, and ransom myself with a large sum of money, only spare my life." The lion said, "Nothing can save you unless you will promise to give me for my own what first meets you on your return home. And if you will do that, I will grant you your life, and you shall have the bird for your daughter into the bargain." But the man hesitated and said, "That might be my youngest daughter. She loves me best, and always runs to meet me on my return home." The servant, however, was terrified and said, "Why should your daughter be the very one to meet you? It might as easily be a cat or dog." Then the man allowed himself to be persuaded, took the singing, soaring lark, and promised to give the lion whatever should meet him on his return home. When he reached home and entered his house, the first who met him was no other than his youngest and dearest daughter, who came running up, kissed and embraced him, and when she saw that he had brought with him a singing, soaring lark, she was beside herself with joy. The father, however, could not rejoice, but began to weep, and said, "My dearest child, I have bought the little bird, dear. In return for it, I have been obliged to promise you to a savage lion, and when he has you, he will tear you to pieces and devour you." And he told her all just as it happened, and begged her not to go there, come what might. But she consoled him and said, "Dearest father, indeed your promise must be fulfilled. I will go there and soften the lion so that I may return to you safely." Next morning she had the road pointed out to her, took leave, and went fearlessly out into the forest. The lion, however, was an enchanted prince, who was by day a lion, and all his people were lions with him, but in the night they resumed their natural human shapes. On her arrival she was kindly received and led into the castle. When night came, the lion turned into a handsome man, and their wedding was celebrated with great magnificence. They lived happily together, remained awake at night, and slept in the daytime. One day he came and said, "Tomorrow there is a feast in your father's house, because your eldest sister is to be married, and if you are inclined to go there, my lion shall take you." She said, "Yes, I should very much like to see my father again," and went there accompanied by the lions. There was great joy when she arrived, for they had all believed that she had been torn in pieces by the lion and had long ceased to live. But she told them what a handsome husband she had and how well off she was, and remained with them while the wedding feast lasted, and then went back again to the forest. When the second daughter was about to be married and she was again invited to the wedding, she said to the lion, "This time I will not be alone. You must come with me." The lion, however, said that it was too dangerous for him, for if a ray from a burning candle fell on him, he would be changed into a dove, and for 7 long years would have to fly about with the doves. She said, "Ah, but do come with me. I will take great care of you and guard you from all light." So they went away together and took with them their little child as well. She had a chamber built there so strong and thick that no ray could pierce through it. In this he was to shut himself up when the candles were lit for the wedding feast, but the door was made of green wood, which was warped, and left a little crack which no one noticed. The wedding was celebrated with magnificence, but when the procession with all its candles and torches came back from the church and passed by this apartment, a ray about the breadth of a hair fell on the king's son. And when this ray touched him, he was transformed in an instant, and when she came in and looked for him, she did not see him, but a white dove was sitting there. The dove said to her, "For 7 years I must fly about the world, but at every 7th step that you take I will let fall a drop of red blood and a white feather, and these will show you the way, and if you follow the trace you can release me." Thereupon the dove flew out at the door, and she followed him, and at every 7th step a red drop of blood and a little white feather fell down and showed her the way. So she went continually further and further into the wide world, never looking about her or resting. And the 7 years were almost past, and she rejoiced and thought that they would soon be delivered, and yet they were so far from it. Once, when they were thus moving onwards, no little feather and no drop of red blood fell, and when she raised her eyes, the dove had disappeared. And she thought to herself, "In this no man can help you." And she climbed up to the sun, and said to him, "You shine into every crevice and over every peak. Have you not seen a white dove flying?" "No," said the sun, I have seen none, but I present you with a casket. Open it when you are in sorest need." Then she thanked the sun, and went on until evening came, and the moon appeared. She then asked her, "You shine the whole night through, and on every field and forest. Have you not seen a white dove flying?" "No," said the moon, "I have seen no dove, but here I give you an egg. Break it when you are in great need." She thanked the moon and went on until the night wind came up and blew on her, and then she said, "You blow over every tree and under every leaf. Have you not seen a white dove flying?" "No," said the night wind, "I have seen none, but I will ask the 3 other winds. Perhaps they have seen it." The east wind and the west wind came, and had seen nothing, but the south wind said, "I have seen the white dove. It has flown to the Red Sea, where it has become a lion again, for the 7 years are over, and the lion is there fighting with a dragon. The dragon, however, is an enchanted princess." The night wind then said to her, "I will advise you, go to the Red Sea on the right bank, or some tall reeds, count them, break off the 11th, and strike the dragon with it. Then the lion will be able to subdue it, and both will regain their human form. After that, look round, and you will see the griffin, which is by the Red Sea. Swing yourself with your beloved onto his back, and the bird will carry you over the sea to your own home. Here is a nut for you. When you are above the center of the sea, let the nut fall, and it will immediately shoot up, and a tall nut tree will grow out of the water, in which the griffin may rest. For if he cannot rest, he will not be strong enough to carry you across, and if you forget to throw down the nut, he will let you fall into the sea." Then she went there and found everything as the night wind had said. She counted the reeds by the sea, cut off the 11th, struck the dragon with it, whereupon the lion overcame it, and immediately both of them regained their human shapes. But when the princess, who had before been the dragon, was delivered from the enchantment, she took the youth by the arm, seated herself on the griffin, and carried him off with her. Then stood the poor maiden, who had wandered so far and was again forsaken. She sat down and cried, but at last she took courage and said, "Still I will go as far as the wind blows, and as long as the rooster crows, until I find him." And she went forth by long, long roads, until at last she came to a castle, where both of them were living together. There she heard that soon a feast was to be held, in which they would celebrate their wedding. But she said, "God still helps me," and opened the casket that the sun had given her. A dress lay inside, as brilliant as the sun itself. So she took it out and put it on, and went up into the castle, and everyone, even the bride herself, looked at her with astonishment. The dress pleased the bride so well that she thought it might do for her wedding dress, and asked for it was for sale. "Not for money or land," answered she, "but for flesh and blood." The bride asked her what she meant by that, so she said, "Let me sleep a night in the chamber where the bridegroom sleeps." The bride would not, yet very much wanted very much to have the dress. At last she consented, but the page was to give the prince a sleeping potion. When it was night, therefore, and the youth was already asleep, she was led into the chamber. She seated herself on the bed and said, "I have followed after you for 7 years. I have been to the sun and the moon and the 4 winds, and have inquired for you, and have helped you against the dragon. Will you then quite forget me?" But the prince slept so soundly that it only seemed to him as if the wind were whistling outside in the fir trees. When day broke, she was let out again, and had to give up the golden dress. And as that had been of no avail, she was sad, went out into the meadow, sat down there, and wept. While she was sitting there, she thought of the egg which the moon had given her. She opened it, and there came out a clucking hen with 12 chickens, all of gold, and they ran about, chirping, and crept again under the old hen's wings. Nothing more beautiful was ever seen in the world. Then she arose and drove them through the meadow before her until the bride looked out the window. The little chickens pleased her so much that she immediately came down and asked if they were for sale. Not for money or land, but for flesh and blood. Let me sleep another night in the chamber where the bridegroom sleeps. The bride said yes, intending to cheat her as on the former evening, but when the prince went to bed, he asked the page what the murmuring and rustling in the night had been. At this the page told all, that he had been forced to give him a sleeping potion because a poor girl had slept secretly in the chamber, and that he was to give him another that night. The prince said, "Pour out the potion by the bedside." At night she was again let in, and when she began to relate how ill all had fared with her, he immediately recognized his beloved wife by her voice, sprang up and cried, "Now I really am released. I have been as it were in a dream, for the strange princess has bewitched me so that I have been compelled to forget you. But God has delivered me from the spell at the right time." Then they both left the castle secretly in the night, for they feared the father of the princess, who was a sorcerer, and they seated themselves on the griffin which bore them across the Red Sea. And when they were in the middle of it, she let the nut fall. Immediately a tall nut tree grew up, on which the bird rested, and then carried them home, where they found their child, who grown tall and beautiful, and they lived happily until their death. Okay. It's kind of a combination of two more common fairy tales. Beauty and the Beast, and East of the Sun, West of the Moon. Right? You picking up what I'm throwing down? Okay. I liked it. I don't know. It was fun. It was good. Okay. We're working backwards, as always. Yes, what do I have to say? I guess I like the theme that sometimes things happen and your plan for life kind of gets ruined, but like the important people will always still matter and they'll be there for you, even if you're bewitched by a gorgeous princess who wants to marry you, and you don't want to marry her, but then she bewitches you, and you're like, oh, okay. And you forget for a little while. You'll come back. It'll be good. What price? I immediately want this cool thing. How much does it cost? Not money or land. I want to sleep in the same room as the guy you bewitched and want to marry. Maybe, okay, let's pause for a minute. Maybe it's not bewitched. Like, maybe it's just literally, it's like, you know, just normal, I love you, marry me. And he's like, oh, yeah, you love me. Cool, guess I'll love you back, you know, because we've all been there. Someone's like, I like you, we're friends, want to hang out, and you're like, sure, I don't want to hang out, but, you know, yeah. But, okay, but, like, seriously, if you have a plan, don't let things distract you from that plan that are not more important to you than that plan. I really don't think the dress or the magical chickens were more important to her than her evil, conniving, I want to marry this guy plan. Maybe it wasn't even evil or conniving, but it was definitely like, I want this to happen, you know? I love just how she followed so dutifully, and the second she was like, he's gone, I don't know where he is, like, I messed up, she tried to fix it, right? The second she realized. Not after, maybe I'll just look around a bit, maybe he's forgotten about me. No, the second she realized. If you make a mistake, you fix it the second you realize it, you know? Because it's better that way. And like she asked the sun, and then after that didn't pan out, she asked the moon, and that didn't pan out. She asked the wind, and he's like, hold up, girl, I feel you. But I haven't seen it, but like, what if my friends have? The other winds, okay? I'll ask them for you. And then they were like, oh yeah, I've totally seen him. Okay, but how, my question is, if one of the winds has seen him, how have the other winds not? Okay, I get the other winds, you know, because whatever, only flies in whatever direction, right? But the moon and the sun have not seen it. Okay, I don't know, that bugged me. But it made for a nice story with the whole, open this thing. Yeah, it'll be fine. It'll be good. Okay, and even though, okay, let's, like, she took so many precautions, and it still didn't work. Okay, no matter how many precautions you take, something's gonna go wrong, okay? Like, okay, in any plan, like, say you're gonna go eat chocolate cake that's sitting on your counter, and maybe it's your roommates or your sisters or whatever, it's not your cake, and you're like, I'm going to, like, very carefully tiptoe, I'm gonna, like, live, like, you know, I'm gonna, like, only do, like, just the tiniest little sliver so they don't see, but still a crumb, like, gets on your jacket, and they're like, I know you ate my cake, you know, so no matter what you do, if you're worried, if you're trying so hard for X thing not to happen, the best thing is to not do that thing, right? No matter how badly you want that cake, or that ice cream, or food. Now I want food. I think I'm hungry. Okay, I think the biggest thing here is just yeah. Like we talked about in the other episode, you know, relatable Gretel or whatever it was. It was clever something. It was one of the clevers. And she just is eating all of the food. She's like, well, I might as well. Well, even though she tried so hard to be subtle, but then, like, stuff happened, and then stuff happened. Just don't do it. Just don't eat that cake, man. Okay, Okay. The biggest point I think I want to make really fast. First off, want simple things. Why pearls or diamonds? No, have a cool bird. Birds are cool. I think, okay, it'll pan down in the end. It all worked out in the end, and it was fine, it was good, it was great, it was whatever. 'Cause he was a lion who was an enchanted prince, and he loved her, and he was nice, he was a gentleman, whatever. It worked out in the end. What if it didn't? What if he was just a freaking talking lion, and he ate her? The dad knew, like it popped into his head, he's like, my daughter's probably the first thing that's gonna come running up to me, and he was like, no, I'm gonna do it, just let me die. But then the servant was like, come on, it might be a cat, it might be a dog, it might be a fly, whatever, just do it, it'll be fine, even though he knew the cost. If you know, like, the worst case scenario and you can't deal with it, again, just don't do the thing. If you know that your sister's gonna be so mad if you eat that cake that she burns something you love, I don't know. If you know that that's a possibility that's like greater than 2%, 12%. We'll go with 12%. If it's 13% or higher, you're like, yeah, I can see this happening. It's like a very high. It's like it's a good possibility. You know, it's viable. That's the word. If it's a viable possibility, this worst case scenario, this thing you do not want to happen, that popped into your head the second they're like, X thing, this thing's happening, and you're like, what about this? If there is like a greater than 12% chance that it's gonna happen, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't eat that cake, man. Just don't eat the cake. That's all I have to say. Alright, my gremlins, thank you for joining us for another happily ever after, or not so happily ever after. That's up for you to decide. What you decide is valid, because you're valid. You are. Either way, this is the end for this episode, so tune in later and we can learn more and maybe turn pages together.